From the outside, the life of a woman may seem calm, ordinary, even uneventful. A daily rhythm of caring, preparing, managing, giving. But underneath the stillness lies an entire world that has gone unnoticed. When a woman enters into marriage, she often does so with a deep willingness to give. She gives her time, her energy, her tenderness, her youth, not because she is forced to, but because love opens the heart. In the beginning, giving feels like a blessing. It is natural, a smile is enough, a shared glance, a kind word, a feeling of belonging. These small returns make her feel seen, valued, connected. But life is long, and the giving does not stop. The needs of the family grow, children arrive. The home becomes more than a place. It becomes a living system that must be managed day and night. She gives up sleep to soothe crying children. She gives up ambitions to raise them well. She lets go of personal dreams because the shared dream of the family seems more important. She gives again and again without always asking for something in return. Not because she does not want appreciation, but because the culture has told her, this is what a good woman does. She learns to swallow exhaustion, to turn pain into silence, to make herself small so others may thrive. Over the years, her sacrifices become invisible, not because they are insignificant, but because they are expected. The meals appear, the clothes are washed, the children are cared for, everything just works, but no one asks at what cost. No one asks, how are you? What do you need? Are you still happy? Time passes. The husband works, returns home, rests. Perhaps he believes he is providing, and he is. But often he does not see what his wife has become in the process, someone who exists in service of everyone else. She rarely complains, but each time her effort is overlooked, a small weight is added to her heart. And these weights accumulate slowly, almost invisibly. Like drops of water on a stone, they wear down the soul. Decades may pass this way, children grow and leave, the house becomes quiet, retirement arrives, and then something unexpected happens. With no children to distract her, no work to occupy him, the husband and wife now sit across from each other with time and silence between them. The masks they wore to survive the busy years begin to fall, and the woman starts to feel something she cannot ignore. It is not just sadness, it is not just loneliness, it is a quiet, burning anger, a sense of betrayal. Did no one see what I gave up? Did he never notice who I was before I became someone else's everything? The weight of unseen sacrifices begins to speak. Not loudly, but deeply. It is the voice of a self that was put on hold, waiting to be acknowledged. And when she looks at her husband, she no longer sees the man she once loved. She sees the man who never asked. The man who believed everything she gave was simply her duty. The man who may have worked hard but never truly carried the emotional weight of the relationship. Hate may be too strong a word for some, but for others it fits. Because what is hate if not love that has rotted from neglect? When a heart gives and is met with indifference or expectation, that love can curdle into something bitter. Not because the woman is cruel, but because she is human. What makes it more painful is that many husbands do not even realize this is happening. They are often surprised by their wives' coldness in old age. What happened? They ask. They don't understand that what they see now is not new. It is the harvest of seeds planted long ago, seeds of neglect, of absence, of unawareness. And yet, this is not a story without hope. Because what is unseen can still be recognized, what is unspoken can still be heard, but it requires humility. It requires courage, especially from the man who thought he was doing enough. To truly see the woman beside you, to look into her eyes and ask her who she is, what she wanted, what she lost, is not weakness. It is the beginning of healing. It may be too late to change the past, but it is never too late to offer presence, to listen, to hold her grief without defensiveness, and for the woman, it is also not too late to reclaim parts of herself. The pain she carries is real, but within it is the voice of a soul still longing to be seen, to express herself not just as a mother, not just as a wife, but as a person with dreams, desires, and a deep inner world. Her sacrifices do not make her invisible, they make her extraordinary, but even the extraordinary must be honored. So in the end, the weight of unseen sacrifices is not just a burden, it is a message, a sacred reminder that every human being needs to be valued. That love is not made of grand gestures, but of everyday recognition, and that no one, not even the strongest among us, can carry the weight of being forgotten. To sit beside someone every day, to share meals, space, and time, and still feel alone, this is one of the deepest forms of suffering in a relationship. It is not the loneliness of being by oneself, but the loneliness that grows in the presence of another. It is more painful than solitude because it carries the illusion of connection. There is a body beside you, but the soul feels distant. The eyes may meet, but they no longer see. Words may be exchanged, but the heart remains untouched. This kind of emotional loneliness is subtle. It does not always arrive with a loud bang. Instead, it creeps in slowly, like fog settling over a quiet village. One day you are talking about everything: dreams, fears, ideas, life. The next you are talking only about the grocery list, the children's schedules, the leaking tap. The conversations become shorter. The pauses grow longer. You begin to speak less, not because there is nothing to say, but because what you wish to say no longer feels heard. In the early stages of love, emotional connection often flows naturally. You look into each other's eyes with curiosity. You ask questions, you listen closely, you laugh together at small things. In those moments there is a sense of presence, of true togetherness. The world becomes quieter, and what remains is this shared space between two hearts. But over time, familiarity replaces fascination. Life's responsibilities begin to take over. Work becomes demanding, children need attention, fatigue sets in. And without noticing it, the space that was once sacred between two people becomes neglected. This is where emotional loneliness begins, not in cruelty or neglect, but in quiet disconnection. The kind that doesn't cause a fight, but creates distance. One day, the woman may look at her husband and realize that while he has always been there, he has not really been with her. His mind is elsewhere, his emotions are guarded, his focus is on function, not feeling. She may begin to feel like a guest in her own marriage, present but not welcomed emotionally. Her joys go unnoticed, her pain unacknowledged. When she tries to speak, she may be met with quick solutions or silence instead of understanding. So she stops trying, the walls go up, she becomes quieter, more inward, but inside she aches, because humans are not meant to live without emotional nourishment. And when that nourishment is missing in the one relationship where it should be most abundant, the emptiness can be overwhelming. It is in old age that this loneliness becomes most visible. When the children are grown, the house is quiet, and the distractions of a busy life are gone. What remains is the essence of the relationship. And if that essence has not been nurtured, if the emotional bond has been neglected for years, what remains may feel hollow. She may look at her husband sitting just feet away and feel like he is miles from her, not in body but in spirit. And the worst part is that he may not even realize it. Many men are never taught to connect emotionally, to listen deeply, or to express vulnerability. They believe that by working hard, staying loyal, and being physically present, they have fulfilled their role. But a woman's heart needs more than duty. It needs presence, attention, tenderness. She needs to feel understood, not just managed. She needs to be spoken to, not just talked at. When these needs are consistently unmet, resentment grows. The loneliness becomes a quiet companion. It shows up in moments when she reaches for a memory and finds it shared only with herself. It appears when she sees other couples laughing, touching, connecting, and wonders why that no longer happens in her own marriage. It visits her in the night when she lies beside a man she once loved deeply and now cannot talk to without feeling frustrated or ignored. It is not that she wants drama or intensity. What she longs for is sincerity, a real connection, someone who looks into her eyes and says, "I see you, I feel you, you matter." This kind of connection cannot be faked. It requires a man to slow down, to drop his guard, to truly be present. And for many, that is difficult. They fear emotion, they fear vulnerability, they fear the depth that their partner longs to share. So they stay on the surface, hoping it will be enough. But surface love cannot feed a starving heart. Over time, this emotional starvation leads to something colder than anger, indifference. She stops reaching out. She no longer expects connection. She learns to live with the loneliness, but it changes her. It hardens her in places. She may become quieter, sharper, more easily irritated, or she may simply withdraw, disappearing into herself like a retreating tide. What was once emotional neglect becomes emotional loss, and this is why in old age some women begin to feel not only distant from their husbands, but also disappointed, even betrayed. Not because he cheated or left, but because he stayed and yet was never truly there. This kind of pain does not heal with apologies or gestures. It heals with presence, with the willingness to rebuild the emotional bridge. It is not too late, even in old age, to ask the questions that matter. How are you really feeling? What do you miss? What did I not see? To sit in silence together and let hearts speak again. The path back to connection is not loud or dramatic. It begins with quiet sincerity, with choosing every day to meet each other where you are, not where you were. Emotional loneliness can be healed, but only if both are willing to show up, not just as partners, but as human beings longing for true intimacy. Only then does the silence become sacred again, not empty, but full of presence. And in that presence, love may be born anew. Let me know if you'd like the next section expanded as well. Growth is a natural part of life. Everything that is alive is meant to grow. A tree reaches for the sky, a river widens with time, even the soul seeks to expand in awareness, in experience, in wisdom. In a relationship, this growth can be beautiful when both partners evolve side by side, learning from each other, deepening their connection with each passing season. But what happens when one partner grows and the other does not? What happens when the paths that once ran parallel begin to separate? This quiet divergence is one of the most painful truths many women confront in their older years. At the start of a relationship, there is often a shared rhythm of passion, of dreams, of building a life together. In that beginning, both partners may be growing in similar ways, learning the ways of partnership, adjusting to new roles, navigating the shared responsibilities of life. But over time, life introduces challenges, and it also introduces choices, opportunities to reflect, to change, to expand beyond what one used to be. Some people accept this invitation to grow. They question their assumptions, soften their ego, seek emotional understanding, spiritual insight, personal transformation. But not everyone does. Many women, especially as they age, become more introspective. Their connection to emotion deepens. Their longing for meaning increases. After years of tending to others, they begin to return to themselves. They read, reflect, heal old wounds, and begin to see themselves and the world with clearer eyes. They no longer want to live on the surface. They crave depth, authenticity, truth. It is not rebellion, it is evolution. A natural shift from survival to self-realization. And sometimes, as this happens, they turn to their partner and realize he has not changed at all. He is still locked in the patterns of his youth, dismissing emotions, avoiding difficult conversations, clinging to habits that no longer serve anyone. He is still quick to anger, slow to listen, uninterested in the inner life. He speaks of news, work, and routine, but cannot sit in silence and explore the heart. He has grown older, but he has not grown deeper. At first, she may try to bring him along, to share what she's learning, to encourage him to open up, to read what she's reading, to reflect together. But often he resists. He may laugh it off. He may become defensive. He may call her changes unnecessary or accuse her of becoming distant. What he does not realize is that she is not moving away from him. She is simply moving forward, and she is inviting him to do the same. But when that invitation is declined again and again, something inside her begins to shift. A quiet disappointment begins to take root. Not because he failed to become someone else, but because he refused to become more of himself, because he chose comfort over courage, routine over reflection, power over presence. And that gap, the one between who he is and who she is becoming, begins to feel heavier with time. This is the burden of unequal growth. It is not about superiority. It is not about one being better than the other. It is about distance, the emotional and intellectual distance that forms when two people stop walking together. One begins to ask deeper questions about life and love, and the other still lives by answers he stopped questioning decades ago. And so the relationship begins to feel like a cage, not because he is cruel, but because he is stuck. And his refusal to move becomes her prison. Every time she tries to fly, he pulls her down with his disinterest, his criticism, or his indifference. She cannot share her new insights because they are met with mockery or silence. She cannot express her inner world because it feels wasted on someone who no longer listens. The tragedy here is not only the missed connection, but the missed potential. What could have been a beautiful journey of shared discovery becomes a lonely path of separate realities. She may stay in the marriage, but she no longer feels married, at least not in the way her soul understands it. And this emotional disconnection becomes especially painful in old age, when the desire for authenticity becomes urgent. There is no longer time to pretend, no more energy for shallow exchanges. She wants to be seen, not just physically, but deeply, the way one soul sees another. And when that is no longer possible with the man she has spent her life beside, resentment takes root. Not loud but steady. Why didn't you come with me? She wonders. Why did you stop growing? She may not say it aloud, but the question lives in her eyes, in her silence, in the shrinking warmth between them. She still prepares the meals, she still sits beside him, but her heart is elsewhere, in books, in friends, in solitude, in spiritual reflection. She does not hate him in the way people think of hate. She simply mourns the man he could have become, the man she once believed he would be. Sometimes he notices, sometimes he asks what's wrong, but by then the distance may be too great. Growth is a path one must choose for themselves. It cannot be forced, and when one partner refuses to grow, the other eventually grows beyond the relationship. This is not failure, this is nature, but it hurts deeply. So, in the quiet moments of old age, when life slows down and truth becomes impossible to avoid, she may finally admit to herself, "I am alone in this marriage not because I left, but because I kept moving, and he chose to stand still." This burden is not spoken of often, but it is real, and it deserves to be honored, not with blame, but with understanding. Growth is not a luxury, it is a necessity. For love to survive time, both hearts must continue to evolve. Otherwise, one heart will outgrow the other, and love, no matter how strong its beginnings, cannot live in a space that no longer fits the soul. There comes a moment in life when the ticking of the clock no longer feels distant, but immediate, when time is no longer something to be ignored or taken for granted. It is no longer a concept, it becomes a presence, a companion, a mirror. In old age, when the responsibilities of raising children, managing a household, and fulfilling duties have slowed, the mind begins to turn inward. It begins to ask questions, and one of the most haunting among them is this: where did all the time go? This realization does not arrive all at once. It comes in fragments, a photograph stumbled upon, a familiar song playing in the background, the lines on the face reflected in the mirror that were not there before, a visit from a grown child who now has their own family, their own life. These moments, seemingly simple, carry within them the weight of time past, and for many women, it is in these moments that the silence surrounding their sacrifices begins to speak. She remembers how she once had dreams, not grand or selfish, but hers, to learn, to travel, to create, to simply be. She remembers the days she gave up rest to nurture others, the nights she stayed awake in worry, in service, in silence. She recalls how she carried the emotional weight of the household, how she held together what was falling apart, how she kept smiling while slowly forgetting her own face. And now, sitting in the calm of later years, the truth begins to rise. Much of her life was spent living for others, and now she wonders if anyone ever truly lived for her. It is not always bitterness that surfaces first. Sometimes it is sadness, a tender ache. She does not regret loving her children. She does not regret being a mother, a wife, a provider of warmth, but she mourns the parts of herself that were left behind. The artist who never painted, the writer who never wrote, the young woman who once danced without fear of being judged, where did she go? She may look across the room at her husband, sitting in his usual chair, reading the paper or watching the news, and feel a pang of something unnameable. Not hatred, not even anger, something quieter, emptiness, not because he was cruel, but because he was absent in ways that mattered. He lived with her, but he did not always see her. He benefited from her steadiness, her care, her sacrifice, but rarely asked what those things were costing her. And now, in the quiet of old age, she sees it, the days she waited for appreciation, the years she hoped he would ask what she needed. The small gestures she longed for but never received, they are gone. Time does not return, that is the cruel truth. It moves in one direction only, and it does not pause for those who are still waiting to be seen. The realization of time lost is like a wave, gentle, then powerful. It washes over her in moments of stillness, when the house is too quiet, when her body is tired in new ways, when she no longer has the energy to chase what once felt possible. It is not just about missed opportunities. It is about the energy she gave to others while starving parts of herself, and it is about realizing that no one will give that time back. What deepens the sorrow is knowing it could have been different if only her partner had been more attentive, more emotionally present, more willing to grow with her. If only the love she gave so freely had been mirrored back with equal depth. If only there had been more tenderness, more listening, more moments of simply being together without distraction or distance. These are not impossible things, they are simple, but they were missing. She may wonder why she didn't speak up more, why she allowed the years to pass without insisting on being seen. But the truth is, many women were raised to endure, to give without expectation, to believe that to love is to suffer in silence, and so she did what she was taught. She endured, she smiled, she made do, until one day she couldn't pretend anymore. The grief of time lost is complicated. It holds anger, sorrow, regret, and even guilt. It also holds clarity, a kind of awakening. Because now she sees her life not just as a collection of tasks and roles, but as a singular journey, hers. And while much of that journey was given to others, she still holds the present moment. There is still time, maybe not to rewrite the entire story, but to write the ending with honesty and grace. She may begin to reclaim small things, solitude, a hobby, new friendships, even the courage to say no. She may not expect her partner to change, but she no longer waits for him to validate her worth. She understands now, the time she has left is sacred, and she will not waste it living in shadows. This realization can be painful for the husband too, if he is willing to face it. He may sense the distance, he may feel her withdrawal, and if he is brave enough, he might begin to ask why. He might, at long last, begin to see the woman beside him not as the role she played, but as a person with depth, with longing, with a history that deserves acknowledgement. But for many, that recognition comes too late, and so she carries the weight of what was lost, not with resentment, but with reverence, because her time mattered, even if no one noticed it then, because her sacrifices were real, even if they were never named. And because now she sees herself clearly, there is beauty in that clarity, there is power in that truth. Even if time has passed, it is not wasted if it leads to awakening.